Hi guys, it's Ernest from Proximal Consciousness. How you guys doing today? I got a great subject matter for you. Democracy. Now, democracy is a very important thing to the United States and the Western Hemisphere. Democracy has provided America with the structure, the balance, the participation that has afforded us great wealth, great power, great influence, a great degree of peace and control. Now, there are some of us who don't necessarily understand what democracy is. What's its strength? What's its power? And where did it get it from? Right? In order to answer that question or to inform those individuals, I think we would have to go back to at least the experience that we had with the British, the English. Right? Not just the experience that we had. I mean, we struggled with them. We had a disagreement with them. Now this is a very unique disagreement that we had. We had a disagreement about freedom. And we also had a disagreement with them about control, self-control. This issue of freedom and self-control is what ultimately drove us toward the ideals, the idea and the ideals of a democracy. Now, it wasn't that struggle of freedom and control with the British early on that was the fullness of this pursuit of a democracy, but it was the beginning, the impetus of it, right? In order for America to become America, there had to be a journey, right? Had to cross this great ocean. People who had never done it before. There had to be a great deal of planning and forethought and control, right? In order to accomplish such a thing as that. Right? They had to cross this great ocean. They had to have food. They had to have safety and control of the ship. They had to have planning and know what direction, what speed. They had to understand so many variables about the journey in order to make it happen, in order to make it safe. They had to have funding. Right? So there was a lot that went into the beginnings of the impetus for a democracy. A lot of planning, a lot of forethought, a lot of control, a lot of mothering and nurturing that took place in England before the journey ever began. America is a unique country in that, in its comparison to other countries, there was a great deal of planning that had to go into it. Planning for just the survival, even to reach the land. Right? So now you had these people who had done all this planning about food, planning about protection, planning about control and direction, and the amount of time and the funding. And they get to America. And then there's more planning, right? They had to build housing. They had to feed the people that arrived. They had to communicate back and forth to England. There was a great deal of issues of planning and freedom and control. They had to deal with the natives. They had to deal with the harsh terrain, unfamiliar territory. All of this effort that went into arriving in America alive and staying alive, this issue of freedom, this issue of control, of environment, went into this communication that these people who arrived here had amongst themselves. Right? They debated the issue of freedom and control, not only in the beginning, not only on the journey, and not only when they arrived here in America, not only in their communications back to where they came from, but now they were living amongst each other. Their colonies, they formed situations that allowed them to have a certain amount of freedom, a certain amount of control. They had rules that they set up and established amongst themselves to live at peace. And when they had rules to deal with situations when peace had failed from time to time, they had to plan, organize. They had to understand freedom and control so that they can regain freedom and control. They can maintain freedom and control. So they thought, and they planned, and they reasoned, and they communicated amongst each other, England, so on and so forth. And when there was no freedom, or when freedom was at question, and when there was no control, or when control was in question, they did more planning. They wrote things down. They published documents. They argued back and forth about what the underlying principles should be for survival, for freedom, and for control. And they came up with Federalist Papers. And eventually, these papers and these freedoms were fought for, and they came up with documents that ultimately led to the constitutions and bills of rights and those sort of things, those historical happenings that were the outgrowth of all this talk of freedom, all this talk of self-control. Right? The America that we know today is not just about the Constitution, it's not just about the Federalist Papers, it's not just about the Bill of Rights, it's not just about the electoral colleges, or the parties that are here participating in the country. There was something that took place way before all of that. The very heart, the very soul of those documents, those happenings, those battles and struggles to this very day, there was something that took place way before all that. There was a spirit about, and that spirit was not only in those struggles and in those incidences, but was in everything about this journey to America. Those issues of freedom, control. These issues were in religion, these issues were in education, these issues were in politics, these issues were in finance, these issues were in freedom and agriculture and feeding the masses and discussions. The issues of freedom. Where do you get it? How do you get it? How do you maintain it? How do you guarantee that freedom is extended to as many as possible, if not to all? This issue of control. Where do you get it? How do you get it? How do you make sure that everyone has a sense of control? How do you accomplish what you want to accomplish? How do you make sure that control doesn't go haywire and have other people ruining other people's sense of control? Those were the issues. Freedom and control was throughout every bit of the journey of the founding and the discovering and the settling of America. The free world, a world that has a right to freedom, people that have a right to freedom and control, controlling of our destiny, our individual destinies, our destiny as a society, a country, a people. So by understanding the issues of freedom, by understanding the issues of control, you can almost place yourself all those years ago. You can place yourself right back into England, right back into the British hands, and almost feel the journey. You can place yourself in preparing to be on that big ship to America. You could almost feel the arrival in America, that struggle to settle land, to have food, to have a place to stay, to socialize. You can almost glance at all that open land, well, not really open, but full of trees, full of jungle. You can almost place yourself there. That struggle for freedom, that struggle for control of that environment, that harsh environment, the weather, the terrain, the animals, the natives. The issue of freedom and control was in every bit of that jungle, every bit of the journey to, during, and in settlement in America. Once these people got to America, once they got settled and they got their freedom and control from Britain, once they settled and developed these colonies and then looking at how things expanded from there, how state after state became a state, the territory after territory, I should say, became a state, it was all about freedom. Somebody wanted some freedoms that weren't necessarily here or there, and they wanted some sense of control, so they journeyed, they expanded, they settled until all of America was settled, when the West was one, so to speak. All about freedom, all about control. Right? So I thought that was a very important thing to talk about, especially in light of our voting and the issues that we have in our country, dealing with the various institutions that have sprang up and developed since America has become America. Something very important to understand. So I thought that looking at democracy, looking at the ultimate underlying issues of it, freedom and control, would help people to better understand it, to value it, to help people to understand how important planning and control is in every aspect of our lives. And that America wouldn't be America if it wasn't for the spirit of freedom and control in every aspect of it, and how we approached freedom and control. There are a lot of countries out there that weren't as fortunate to debate those issues as we have, and weren't as fortunate to be guided in all that planning and directing with all that journey that we had and the risk that was partaken of to get here and settle this country. And their countries are the way they are. Their struggles are the way their struggles are. They're getting to the point of where we are as a country, as a nation, as a people. Right? It's filled with struggle. Things that we planned so that we didn't have to struggle that way. So that our people didn't have to struggle that way. So that's the thought that I had today, guys. The importance of understanding what democracy was really about and is about to this very day. The issue of freedom and control for us all. So I hope you guys are liking my videos. I hope you're subscribing to my channels. And I look forward to talking with you guys again soon. So have a nice day, guys. Bye now.